The Joyful Noise Radio Hour.
I mean, I found out about Daniel after I started after I sort of was doing my own home recordings.
Mm-hmm.
Like Sonic Youth had actually introduced me to them.
Oh yeah.
Steve Shelley had, because they Dinosaur Jr. did a 2-week tour with a Sonic Youth, probably in 1986, I think. It was our first tour, and they would just carry this huge boombox around with them and just be playing these cassettes all the time that they had picked up on the road. And it was amazing.
Like, wait, hold on. They would do this like in the van on the way to the shows or something, or they do like
they had this one of those huge, like, New York City boom boxes, and they were always playing music on it. If they were carrying it around with them everywhere, and we were kind of we were chasing them in our van, for 2 weeks, or actually in Jade's parents' station wagon. We were chasing them on tour for 2 weeks, and they were just the coolest. They'd get out, like, we'd get to the venue or whatever, and they'd be there, and Thurston would have the big boom box out on the sidewalk playing crazy music, really cool, like a lot of like experimental stuff, a lot of like, but it was all generally stuff that they had sort of acquired on the road. And then one night, like, it was this amazing starry night, just, it was beautiful out, and the boom box was just sitting on the sidewalk. I think maybe we had already played the show, but I heard, I'm a Baby in My Universe by Daniel Johnston coming out of this boombox, and I was like, what what is that? I mean, I'm like, because it was so recognizable and familiar to me, because I had been taping in my my childhood bedroom, onto my parents' portable tape recorder, and I just recognized the textures and recognized but I was like, oh my God. And his songwriting was so, I was so blown away by, there's a handful of things that I can remember the first time hearing, and Daniel is definitely one of them. And I think I was sort of intimidated, because I thought, oh my God, this is like what I've been doing, with my life for the last 3 or 4 years, since like 1981 or 82, but his songwriting was everyone knows this. Everyone possibly watching this, and yourself, of course, understand that he was a very sophisticated songwriter, and to hear that kind of like that songwriting sophistication and in the context of these home recordings was just it was like it was a moment. I really I felt it.
Yeah. That's awesome. Did you ever get to meet Daniel?
I came close. I had a tour manager who was working with Sebadoh. The answer is no, but I came close because I had a tour manager who was from Austin, and she had been, she was very much a part of the Austin scene, sort of when Slacker, the movie, was created, and she went on to become, like, she sold T-shirts for like Jesus Lizard and all this other stuff. But we were one of the final Sebadoh tours that we were doing with her in like 1997 or 98. She was like, we're going to go to Texas, and we're going to go to my dad's house, and you're going to shoot a machine gun, and then we're going to and then we're going to meet Daniel Johnston. And I was like, oh. And unfortunately, like, we didn't end up getting to meet Daniel, but and I didn't get to shoot a machine gun. But I wish I do, and I don't wish I had met Daniel, because I do think he was so clearly troubled, and I think that would be difficult. So
yeah, totally. His story is one that kind of gives me hope about the music industry, because like I'm surprised how revered he is, honestly. He's amazing, don't get me wrong, but it's like he sounds like he's from a different planet, and I'm just surprised that the mainstream has embraced it, to an extent.
Yeah, I am, and I'm not. I think because the songs are really good.
Yeah.
Like they actually are like extraordinarily good.
Yeah.
And they actually go way beyond being outsider. That's the thing about his stuff. I mean, it's like it, I mean, even his early cassettes when I, because Steve Shelley had given me, he gave me like a compilation. He made me like a half an hour cassette tape of like his idea of Daniel's greatest hits. And he actually ended up like almost putting out Hi, how are you to a larger audience. But
wow.
he actually backed out of it at the last minute because he felt he didn't want to exploit him.
Mm-hmm.
And he felt because he brought Daniel to New York. I mean, it's all in the movie, but it's like he had brought Daniel to New York, Sonic Youth had.
Yeah.
And it was such an intense thing for them. And I think Steve really felt conflicted. He was like, I don't know how I feel about bringing this guy to a larger audience,
Did he feel like it was like taking advantage of somebody who wasn't mentally capable or something?
I think also Daniel had also tried to attack him. So that probably didn't really help it along for him. And I think he bowed out. I mean, he bowed out pretty quickly, but Gerard and Homestead picked up on that. But I guess to me, I'm like, I'm not surprised because the stuff that is good is like extraordinary. And I mean, it's not, I mean, there's so much stuff that's like that we can consider sort of outsider and, I mean, and of course now that everything is out there pretty much, and there is, I mean, I'm a great believer in just like how truly unbelievably limitless the world is for like just incredible music that you've never heard. It's out there. But I do think that like his songwriting was actually on par with Lennon and McCartney and the greats, Lieber and Stoller, I think he was actually one of the great songwriters in American music history. So I actually, so I guess for me, if you do consider it just in terms of like that he was just, very, very troubled, there's that part of it. I think the fact is he's also he's part of this new, like what indie rock game, what indie rock gave to the world. It was the beginning of like, where stuff wasn't regional anymore, where it was basically very hard to keep a secret anymore because there was a lot of secrets kept, especially in the music world before the 1980s, but as the circle started growing bigger and people were touring a lot and fanzines and then into the internet, it's like, it is hard for somebody who is truly that talented to go on totally unrecognized, and so to me, it's not, and the other fact is that there were people working with Daniel who were making sure that Daniel was seen and heard.
Like advocates around him, like Steve Shelley.
Steve Shelley.
Kramer.
Exactly. Sonic Youth were like evangelical about that when they discovered him. I mean, and already the people within Austin were, and then when Sonic Youth got a hold of it, I mean, and Sonic Youth really had people's ear, on a national level. And so then it was just basically this handing off. And, because Sonic Youth, like, it was almost that post-hardcore thing of like, people were very, the communication and the underground, the American underground was and is, I assume, as much as I know of it now, but it's a very fertile and very caring environment. It's where people do want other people to hear great music.
Yeah. I think that's still true.